Happy Victory Tuesday, everybody, and welcome back to All About America's Team, brought to you by Delahanty Media. The victory attire is back for me, but as for Owen, he picked the Eagles last week, so he was kicked out of the Victory Attire fan club for at least 1 week. So that is why he is in the Dallas Cowboys sports jacket. But anyway, just we can throw that out the window. This is a happy show. The Cowboys are 2-1. That has not been that really hasn't happened in a while. In fact, I can't remember the last time the Cowboys won 2 games in a row. I'm sure they did it last year, but last year was kind of a joke. So we kind of throw that out the window.
Yeah, this is the first time the Cowboys have a positive record in the Mike McCarthy era.
Yes, very, very exciting indeed. But today we have a lot to talk about on the show. We will give our thoughts on the game, obviously, as we are a Dallas Cowboys show. But also, we are going to do my favorite segment, Escape from Reality, where we take a break of being fans of the Cowboys and go into other stuff that's happened in Week 3 during the NFL on Sunday and Thursday. We're going to break down a little bit of individual stars in the game, give some letter grades, maybe give our game MVP, and then also I'm going to give my progress report of the Dallas Cowboys defense, and I'm sure Owen will also have some things to share regarding that as well. But before we get into the Dallas Cowboys and their matchup versus the Philadelphia Eagles, let's get right into Escape from Reality. So I'm going to go first. I have quite a few things that I'd like to touch on. So the first thing I'm going to touch on is Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford, he basically got saved from Detroit. He got evacuated, broken out of prison, as you could say, and taken to LA with sunshine. The beach is pretty close. He's in California having the time of his life, and it's showing on the football field. Matthew Stafford has 942 yards through 3 games, 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. He is 3-0. His completion percentage is up at 70%, and he's already has a come-from-behind victory. And on top of that, he beat the GOAT, Tom Brady, last weekend. Pretty much took advantage of that horrid secondary. But he did his job all 4 quarters, didn't give Tom Brady any room to come back. And he had a nice deep ball to Deshaun Jackson at the end of the game. One of the Cowboy killers of my generation is Deshaun Jackson. So he's even in his old age, he is still a very, very dangerous deep threat. So if the Cowboys were to somehow make the postseason and face the Rams, he's something they'd have to account for. And I just broke my rule. But anyway, whatever. Anyway, next thing, I have Kirk Cousins. His team has had a slow start, but he has not had a slow start. He's also up in the 918-yard category. He has 8 touchdowns, no turnovers, 73% completion percentage, and he's basically a botched field goal away from being 2-1. He played the Seahawks fairly tight. And this week he had a very great game. No, I'm sorry. They beat the Seahawks this week. No. Who did they beat this week? Crap. Whatever. He's had a great game. He's had a great 3 games. And I'm really excited to see what he does, see what the Vikings do. They're a threat to the Packers in their division, as always. And I think it's a great thing when your quarterback still plays well, even with Dalvin Cook being sidelined for this most recent game. So I found that out Sunday morning, and I was playing Owen actually in fantasy, and I subbed Dalvin Cook out for some running back on my bench. That running back got 2 points, and I was still able to come out with a 40-point victory. Just a side note. Anyway, and last
the Vikings won.
They did win.
So they're 1-2.
Yeah, they're 1-2, and a botched field goal versus Seattle from being 2-1. That's what I'm looking for. And they played the Bengals pretty tough, and I'm not really sure why they lost to the Bengals, but that's his story for another day. And last but not least, I have Lamar Jackson, and I also have Justin Tucker. I'll touch on that later. But Lamar Jackson, since he threw those 2 interceptions against Kansas City, he's really played lights out as a quarterback. He came from behind versus the Chiefs, which is very hard to do. Had a little bit of help from Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Patrick Mahomes, but still he was able to get the job done there. And then last week he completed a 4th and 19. The offense wasn't really having a great day versus the Lions, but on 4th and 19 he completed that pass, got that first down, and then Justin Tucker came out and just booted a 66-yard field goal. So that's the new NFL field goal record. It came on the same day where Matt Prater attempted one, and it ended up being taken to the house on him. So that was pretty funny. But I thought that was pretty cool, especially since I've met Justin Tucker before. He came to a middle school lunch. Perks of knowing someone who's a family member of Justin Tucker. But so yeah, that was pretty cool. So good job, Justin. But yeah, those are my 3 escape from realities, and looking forward to hear what you have as well.
Yeah, so my first one is Aaron Rodgers silencing the haters, myself included. After week 1, I thought that him not being with the system for a while was going to take away from his talent and make it kind of like we talked about with other quarterbacks that don't play, kind of have like a few week preseasons. I thought that the first few weeks of this season for the Packers were not going to be all that great. But Aaron Rodgers, with 30 seconds left and they created a new meme, he played amazingly. And obviously the Mason Crosby kick to win it all was insane. And it kind of brought me back to 2016 when he hit a game winner against the Cowboys in the playoffs. But I also broke it, so we both did. But moving on, Big Ben. I don't know if anyone saw Ray. You probably did. It's all over Instagram, Twitter, where he fell down and he threw the ball right to Logan Wilson, and I was just like, that's the Big Ben that I know and love. And they lost that game, which was pretty funny. And my third is Justin Fields. He went 6 for 20 with 68 yards, had 3.4 yards per attempt, and he was sacked 9 times. And Myles Garrett had 4.5 of those sacks. And it was really insane because I was on Twitter, scrolling through Twitter, and someone said that they thought that Matt Nagy did not call a good game to show that Andy Dalton was the better quarterback for the Bears for that right now. And I was just like, it kind of makes sense, but that's not an issue for another day. But I did not think that he would have had this hard of a stat line. And hopefully he will be able to play better because as of right now, I don't think any rookie quarterback has played all that well. And even Mac Jones, I think he threw like 3 interceptions this past week. So I feel like every year there's one quarterback who kind of asserts himself no matter where he was picked as the best. And as of right now, no one's really done that as of so far. So it'll be interesting. I know it's early, but it'll be interesting to see who becomes the best quarterback for the draft class.
Yeah, just a quick 2 points. I'm one to admit when I was wrong in regards to Ben Roethlisberger. I was dead wrong. I thought he would be a little bit better, just a teensy bit better than he was the year before. And he looks awful. So I think he should retire now. So, hey, me giving him a top 10 spot just based on his name was a bad idea.
Yes,
so let me just get that out of the way. It's the only thing I've been wrong about on this show so far. But anyway, just another disclaimer. the Vikings did beat the Seahawks. I did have that right. It was the Seahawks. They lost to the Cardinals on the botched field goal. So botched field goal, they would be 2-1. The Cardinals would be 2-1, and yeah, just basically the Minnesota Vikings are a pretty good football team. They've started off the season slow as a team, but Kirk Cousins has started off the season hot as a quarterback. So that's just kind of interesting. And yeah, that's gonna do it for Escape from Reality. So let's let's get back into the Cowboys. So Cowboys, they they pretty much destroyed the Eagles. It was pretty bad. They never trailed. They blew out the depleted Eagles, who were basically losing players left and right as the game went on. By the end of the game, they were starting, I think, 3 third-string linemen on their offensive line. I think their backup got hurt in the game, and then another backup got hurt in the game, and all of a sudden they have this no-name dude at left tackle or something like that. So it was pretty easy to see that the Cowboys were the way superior team, and it was really nice to see them take advantage of that. Zeke led the way on the ground. Dak was efficient, completing like 21 to 26 passes, 3 touchdowns. Trayvon Diggs, he's kept his breakout season going with his pick 6. I was also wrong about that over-under. I said he would not get an interception, but Jalen Hurts decided that he didn't want me to be right, so he threw a lazy, nonchalant out route pass, and Trayvon just said, "Thank you very much. I'm going to take this to the house." Which, Trayvon, I'm proud of you. You've come a long way from dropping interceptions to now catching interceptions. So I really appreciate that from you. But Owen, I'm going to give you the floor. What are your thoughts on the game? And then after you giving your thoughts, who is your game MVP?
Okay, so thoughts. First of all, I want to give an apology to everyone. I thought that Jalen Hurts, after his rookie debacles against the Cowboys, I thought that he was going to be able to show that he has the potential to be the franchise quarterback, and I was very wrong. Very wrong. If you look at the stat sheet for both quarterbacks, it's very obvious to see that Jalen Hurts severely outplayed Dak based off the numbers. But if you watch the game, that was just not the case. I was going to go into stats, but Ray kind of did that already. On the defense, I thought Osa Odigizua had a really good game. He had half a sack, and he had 2 QB or 1.5 sacks, and he had two QB hits, which, for one thing, that, like I've said in other shows, Mike McCarthy, who we can get into a little later, has not done a lot right. But one thing he's definitely done is hit on these rookies. I think that Ray and I can both agree that with Jason Garrett, if one player went down, it was that was the end. If COVID was a thing when Jason Garrett was the coach, and if we had DeMarcus Lawrence go down and all these COVID related injuries, I think we would have lost by a lot. But you have rookies who should not be starting, and who would instead have bench roles, or they would come in every few downs, who were giving a lot of good reps and making an impact against an offensive line who their tackles aren't the greatest, but they're 2 guards and center. They're pretty good, above average, and it was good to see that happen. The one thing on Diggs that I wanted to say, someone mixed a video of when Trayvon Diggs was the wide receiver for Hurts, and he caught an out route. So I think that he knew that based on the way that Hurts dropped back, it was either going to be a slant or an out. And you could say that Devontae Smith falling had something to do with that. But even if he didn't fall, it was going to be an interception. It may not have been a pick 6, but Diggs is all over that. And he had a really big game. He had 3 pass deflections. Obviously, the 1 interception, and the only interception taken for a touchdown. But it was nice to see a corner do that. I don't think we've had a corner like that since Byron, and Byron never really caught the ball. And this is the first time since, let me see where it was. Um, First one was Everson Walls. Yeah, Everson Walls, who had three. He had two last cornerback since him to have three interceptions or an interception in the first three games to start the season, which I think is really big because. And speaking about turnovers, to be leading the league,
Do you have a year on that? It's
I
got to be
think
more than 10 years, right?
I think it was the 80s. I didn't get, but it's been a while. Maybe
Yeah.
not the 80s. I don't really know when he was in his prime because I was not alive when
Yeah.
he was playing.
Yeah. I mean, that just goes to show how long the secondary has been
Yeah.
average or below average.
Yeah. In years
Yeah.
past, Dallas hasn't even sniffed eight turnovers since week 11, week 12. So I'd like to say that this is definitely a testament to how good the new defensive coordinator is and how good these players that they brought in are. My MVP, I guess you could. I'll give an offensive MVP and I'll give a defensive MVP. Offensive is obvious to see Zeke, and Zeke. I apologize for 2 weeks ago coming on this show after week one and saying that you were not what you are, and I apologize. I think that Ray and I go back and forth in this all the time. I think if you go into a game and a defense plays too high safety, just run the ball until they stop because you're not going to be able to stop with seven guys in the box. You're not going to be able to stop Zeke, Tony Pollard, or anyone. But if they do crowd the box, that's when you should throw. But I think when I read a stat when Dallas runs the ball more than they throw, they're 26-0, which I think is really awesome. So they should continue to do that. They should definitely continue to establish the run. Even I said last week, establish the run, but I didn't expect Philly to even on draw plays, they were just open holes all over the place on draws, and I did not expect that. And Zeke, I think, is finally running in between the tackles. I'd rather have Tony Pollard run outside the tackles so Zeke can continue to run inside because I don't think he's as fast and as agile as he was the rookie to be able to go outside the tackles and make people miss. But he lowered the shoulder a few times, and Ray texted me, why couldn't he do that week one?
I actually tweeted that.
Oh, you did tweet it. Never mind, you tweeted it. And my defensive, I think the obvious choices here is Diggs. But I will let. I don't even know. It's either going to be between Diggs or Parsons. But I will give my MVP to Diggs. But they both have been doing really great. So Diggs gets it. Diggs and Zeke.
Solid. Very, very solid.
I'd get into the defensive stuff, but we're going to get into that later. So I have a lot more to speak about.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. So I did not do very much individual research regarding the Dallas Cowboys breakdown of this football game because this football game was over by halftime. I mean, like the score was kind of fairly close, but it was pretty much over. Like the Cowboys, they were in control of the game pretty much the entire time. They never trailed. The only time it kind of looked a little shaky was after Mr. Cement Shoes fumbled in his own end zone. Not necessarily all of his fault, but I don't think he should fumble in that situation in the end zone. That gifted the Eagles a touchdown, and that was 7 out of their 21 points. So the game really wasn't that close, but like that was kind of the only part of the game where it was kind of teetering momentum, where you could possibly think like, okay, we're kind of in a little bit of trouble here. So that was kind of the only time that the Cowboys really made a bad mistake on offense. But I mean, they ran the ball effectively. They attacked the Eagles, the banged up defensive line. They kept doing it over and over and over again, and they were basically running the same play with Zeke, just inside or behind Zach Martin the entire way down the field, getting 5 yards every single time, just really beating up on them. And then when they threw the ball, the receivers were wide open. Dalton Schultz was wide open a few times in the end zone. CeeDee Lamb on that deep ball at the beginning of the game was pretty much wide open. So it was just a pretty like easy game for the Cowboys offense in that situation. So I liked how Zeke was running. They had Zeke running from like in a straight line because he's not a lateral quick running back. So the quicker you can get him full steam ahead, the better. That's why I think that they're utilizing Tony Pollard more on those lateral like to the outside tackle runs more. They're using Tony Pollard there, but like Zeke, especially at this stage of his career after 4 years of just getting a ton of carries, they just need to have him running straight down the line. I definitely saw a different Zeke this game than in the past 2 weeks. He definitely seemed more engaged. I don't know if it was just a division matchup or if it was because of Sirianni's T-shirt. I don't know, or I don't know what it was, but he looked different. So I hope he keeps.
Everyone's saying Tony Pollard should be the starter.
Yeah. That's probably why. That's honestly probably why. But I hope he keeps that same energy the entire year because we're gonna need that Zeke. We cannot have passive Zeke. Another side note: Zeke has not fumbled the ball yet this year. So knock on wood. But that's very excellent because last year and the year before he was a fumbling machine. So the fact that he's gotten that on taken care of, it's really helped the Cowboys on offense and really helped them win these last 2 games. And also, just the last quick thing before I get into my MVP, the Dallas Cowboys controlled the time of possession by 18 to 20 minutes, which I thought was like really, really, really incredible. And at one point they pulled up a stat on the broadcast, and I think the Cowboys had like a 30-minute time of possession. The Eagles were at 19. So, or like 9. It was like a 29 minutes to 9 minutes, which like if you can do that, then you're going to win a lot of football games. And that was just a testament to them just slowly and surely just beating down the Eagles defense. And so I only gave one MVP. I just kind of gave like an MVP for the game. So my MVP for the game is Trayvon Diggs. He had the pick 6. Actually, let's start from the beginning. The very first play, Trayvon Diggs just completely got his ankles taken from him by Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert. It was not a good look, but he bounced back. He got the interception off Jalen Hurts and just took it to the house. He was around the ball, making good tackles, good pass deflections, playing with intensity, fire, and it was good. He was locked in from snap 1 to the last snap. So I don't think he had a penalty called on him, maybe one, but he played a very clean game, and he's my game MVP. So overall, great win for the team, but I'm not going to over-exaggerate this performance because it was the abysmal Philadelphia Eagles, which we both picked to be a bottom feeder in this division. So I think it's a good confidence booster, but I don't think we should grade or predict the overall future of this football team this season like someone, Skip Bayless, is doing right now.
Well, one thing, 2 things, but I'll start with this first. I think it's very obvious that the Cowboys, as of right now, are the best of the worst. Because last week and even 2 weeks ago, everyone was saying that the Eagles were by far the best team in the NFC East, and they had a chance to like make it far. And the Giants are abysmal. Their middle linebacker Blake Martinez just tore his ACL, so hopefully he can come back and be healthy next year. Besides that, Washington, their secondary is horrendous. Taylor Heinicke, he looks good, but their defensive line has not looked good by any means, or not as good as everyone thought they were going to be. And it's pretty sad when the Washington football team has less pressures on on Herbert than the Cowboys do. I think everyone should be able to have more QB hits and more QB pressures than Dallas did in any game, no matter who it is, which is pretty surprising because obviously Dallas did not have their best defensive lineman in DeMarcus Lawrence. But besides that, you said before that Dak should have gotten rid of the ball. Yes, he should have. I just don't know where. Because Biadasz was in his face, everyone was coming around him. The whole offensive line just collapsed. And I'd rather him. You can't throw it away because it's going to be intentional ground. You can't just chuck it up because then it's going to be intercepted. So it was kind of a lose-lose situation either way. So I understand. He should have gotten rid of it. I just don't know what he could have done with it. But also, yes, remember yesterday how you said to me about how Dak, when he rolled out to his left and threw it, how the cornerback or the safety could have intercepted it? To Cedric Wilson, the 1 foot. He caught out of bounds. And you said that Diggs should have.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the safety, Harris, the ex-safety from Minnesota, was nowhere near the ball, so he couldn't have. And the cornerback had his back turned to him. So if he turned around, could he have intercepted it? Yes, but the safety wasn't near him, wasn't close enough to the ball to get it, and the cornerback did not have his back turned. So I was watching before the highlights, and I was like, wait. I thought that it was a lot closer than it was, but it was not. If you look back at it and you feel differently, then by all means, but that's what I saw from it.
So, just okay. First thing, the safe or not the touchdown or the fumble touchdown. Yeah. I got you on that. I think in that situation, a safety is definitely better than a touchdown, giving up touchdown in that situation. I can't really tell you where he should have thrown the football in that situation based on not really knowing exactly where anybody was at the time. I'm just more in the sense of whenever a good example is whenever Dak drops back to pass, he does his drop back and he just kind of plants his feet in the ground and just kind of just chills there, just kind of sits there. And I think where a lot of these like strip sack fumbles are coming from is he's not very like, I don't want to say athletic because that's not a good word, but he's not always moving in a sense. Like his feet seem a little bit stuck on the ground. So whenever there's pressure, it's a little bit harder to break that pressure. So I think that's just kind of my thing is that's why I call him cement shoes is whenever he takes his drop back, he just gets stuck on the ground and in that one spot. And he doesn't move. There's one play where he did move pretty well. His feet were active and feet being active is a lot better description than not being athletic. So his feet were active. So he was able to step up, shift to the left and then throw the pass. But on that specific play, he was just kind of stuck in the same spot. So I guess I would probably like to see maybe him roll out. I mean, I can't really without seeing the play, but I just think what happened was not the thing that should have happened. I'm not really sure what should have happened.
Yeah, exactly.
And in regards to the interception, I don't necessarily remember as telling you the safety should have picked it, but what I did say to someone else regarding it, I said that corner was looking at the ball and then he turned his head to look at Wilson. And I think if he had kept his head looking from where the ball was coming, he could have either deflected the pass or intercepted it.
Yeah, definitely.
So I was like, it was more of a why did you turn your head back toward the receiver when you were tracking the ball? It was just kind of one of those situations where if it's not a veteran corner, they just kind of get lost in where they are. But I mean, it still was still a pretty good throw, and it should have been a completion. But
it was thrown like outside, but he put the ball where no one could have intercepted it. But talking about Dak outside of the numbers, where I think that he is at his best when he's rolling out. Last night he was 10 for 12 with 96 yards and 3 touchdowns, and over the whole season, the course of the past 3 games, he has 6 touchdowns outside the numbers, which is tied with Brady and Kyler and Murray for first in the NFL. So on those bootleg stuff, like all that stuff that Dak's really good at, they always tend to excel and do very well when those things happen.
Yeah.
Another thing about Dak. He is 8-1 at home in the month of September, and that only loss is due to Terrence Williams deciding to not go out of bounds. So being 8-1 at home in the past 4 years of his career is pretty good. pretty good. Um, yeah, I wanted to talk about what I think Dallas should improve on. Ray, do you have anything that Dallas should improve on, or should I just give mine? Because you can piggyback off of mine if you'd like.
Oh, here's the text messages. I was like, thank goodness that wasn't a competent corner. In Madden, that's a pick every time.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I said Trayvon Diggs picks that bleep. So there you go. There's some Trayvon Diggs support right there. But yeah,
So
I really don't have anything to say after that. I think we should just go into the defense, because the defense is a very common topic these days on talk shows and everywhere, and even on the broadcast, the announcers were just spoon feeding praise to the defense, saying, "Oh, this looks like a contending defense." And there's a lot of different opinions on how the Cowboys defense has been playing. I've kind of looked into it in depth the last 3 games, just kind of, and I'll give my 2 cents, but I'm going to let Owen go first, and then I'm going to piggyback off him. But so, Owen,
okay.
how do you think the Dallas Cowboys defense has looked these first 3 weeks, and how have you seen them improve? How have they improved? And also, what do you think they need to improve, and what are some things that you think are cause to pause?
So before I get into that, have you ever seen a EPA, which is an expected points added metric?
I have
the
not
grid.
seen.
Ever seen one of those before? Okay, so
No.
basically it's like an expected points, added metric.
Yeah.
So for offense, they have a 0.1, which is very good. It's obviously positive, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
And on the defense, it is a negative 0.05. So they're basically in the top right, which means based off this, I know it doesn't mean that they're great, but based off of this, based off having a negative 0.05, they have a better EPA per play on defense than the Raiders, the Rams, Tampa, Chargers, the Browns, and the 49ers, which doesn't say a lot because it's just the one stat, but I think that it's a lot better than they were last year. And to bring some other teams in, the Chiefs have a better offensive EPA, but they have a 2 on defense, which is horrid. So the Chiefs have a better offense, but a way worse defense, which is something that I think is interesting. So Diggs, Diggs is the first Cowboys defender since Everson Walls. We got into that. They lead the league in takeaways with 8, which, like we said before, is insane. And by no means is their defense perfect or top 10, not even top 15, but they've made improvements. If you want to take the 2020 season against the Eagles, in week 8, Dallas lost by a decent amount. That was the Ben DiNucci game. And Boston Scott had 75 yards on 15 carries. And in the week 15 game where Dallas won 37-17, Jalen Hurts ran for 69 yards on 9 carries, and Miles Sanders ran for 57 yards on 15 carries. Now, for whatever reason, Miles Sanders only got 2 carries, and he ran for like 27 yards, and his longest was 24, so they should have ran the ball more. But based off that, they obviously haven't played a run-heavy offense yet, but the numbers definitely do look better. And could they have gone down next week if Christian McCaffrey was playing? Yes. But they also, one thing, the Cowboys haven't had great safeties. Ray, who's the last great safety they've had? Because I said Jeff Heath just based off of having interceptions. But in your opinion, who's been the last great Cowboys safety?
The last great Cowboys safety would probably be Darren Woodson.
Okay.
But the last competent safety is Roy Williams.
Okay. So I think we can both agree that the Cowboys having a platoon of KZ, Curse, and Donovan Wilson, hopefully he'll be back for next week, is way better than anything we've had since those 2 safeties. Last year and the years before, Xavier Woods never by the ball, always getting juked out. Even Jeff Heath, nowhere by the ball, always missing tackles. Last week against the Chargers, Curse was everywhere, KZ was everywhere, and it's good to finally have some competent safeties that can be around the ball and look good. Jalen Smith looked good. I think that the amount of snaps he played was good for him. He looked really good sideline to sideline, and Jalen Hurts runs a 4.59, and Jalen Hurts runs a 4.59. I don't think Smith runs anything near that. Obviously, he may have before his ACL tear in college, but he looked really good going off and catching up to him. Randy Gregory, who did not have the best stat sheet, he was always in the face of Hurts and always getting in his way. I also, the last thing, hopefully next week our defensive ends will be able to come back healthy. We'll be able to have Bradley and I and some other guys who are on the COVID list and who were banged up, because I would love to see Parsons back at linebacker. They can move him back to linebacker. They can have him play wherever they want him to. But I think that him going back to linebacker will be big, because that's obviously where he's at his best. And he's playing better at defensive end than I think anyone thought he would, which is awesome. And Leighton Vander Esch, and also Keanu Neal's coming back next week, or he's not vaccinated, so maybe he'll be coming back in 2 weeks. But hopefully he'll be able to come back for next week, because having Keanu Neal is really good in the linebacking core. And the defense last week, they did give up a lot of big plays. Obviously, I think the one that meant the most was the one to Goddard where Diggs almost broke his foot, I thought. But besides that, the ones at the end of the game, they were definitely just, the Cowboys were, even the screen where it was like 3rd and 18, they were playing very, very prevent defense, and they allowed anything just before the first down marker. I think there was a lot of plays that, obviously the screen or the bootleg to Goddard or Ertz where he ran for 20 plus, that was big and should not have happened. So they have to clean up the small things. But one thing I want to talk about, and then you can go on, Ray, the first touchdown where they scored to make it 14-41, I think. I don't know if you saw, but even the announcers were saying all the Cowboys defenders had no idea what was going on. So I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, hopefully I think they took a really big step. And even though it was against the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, he looked competent, but he looked pretty decent before playing the Cowboys. And Devontae Smith looked really good. And Devontae Smith had 3 receptions for 28 yards, I think, which is pretty insane for how well he had played before this game. But this defense is not perfect. I doubt they'll be anywhere near top 10, top 15. But they are playing a lot better than they are last year. I'm not staring at my screen and watching Jalen or Leighton completely miss tackles. So, but hopefully this keeps up. So yeah. The floor is yours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, you said a lot. And
yeah, sorry.
Your statistics, I'm sure, are in the money. I have no idea what that defensive points marginal means, but that seems pretty, accurate, considering that the Cowboys have not really given up many points on defense other than that first game. But so basically, how I'm going to grade the defense through the first few weeks is I'm just going to give it just in the categories of the good and then the bad. Just very simple stuff. So the good, I have takeaways. You talked about the takeaways, but they're leading the league in takeaways, which is bizarre from the Cowboys defense. So they're taking the ball away. They're taking advantage of the ball being basically handed to them half of the time, which is very accurate. Half of their takeaways have come from unforced errors from the offense that they're playing, but they have taken advantage and taken the ball away. Next thing I have red zone defense. They've been stopping teams in the red zone. It's except for the Bucks, who just scored on pretty much every red zone possession they had. But when it comes to the Chargers did not punt the football, and they pretty much drove it into the Cowboys red zone every time, and the Cowboys were able to only give up 17 points. So that's good. That's good. They've closed the margins of touchdowns that the offense has given up, or that they have given up. And then lastly, they're playing faster and they're playing harder. So last year, I did not see them really. It didn't really look like they cared very much. They were just kind of nonchalant and giving up a bunch of big plays and touchdowns. But this year, they're flying to the ball. They're making good tackles. They're hitting better. They're playing the ball. Just all the stuff that you want your defense to do. And I'll give Dan Quinn props to that, because he's instilled a different culture on defense, and it's very similar to what Marinelli had them doing at the beginning, where when he replaced Rob Ryan, they were taking the ball away. They weren't necessarily the greatest defense in the world, and they had some problems from when Rob Ryan was the defense coordinator, but they were taking the ball away more. So that was kind of hiding the holes that they still had. So those are my good things. Now I'm just going to address the bad things. They're still giving up a ton of yards on defense. They've given up 1,200 yards in 3 games, which that's kind of more of a college number. But in the NFL, it's alarming when you're giving up 1,200 yards in 3 games. And I know it's more of a passing league now than it was before, but still 1,200 yards is quite a bit of yards. Next thing, they're still giving up those huge chunk plays. So this game especially, the Eagles looked really bad on offense, and Jalen Hurts did not look very good, but he was still every now and then getting those really big chunk plays. And one of those examples is at the end of the game. The game was over, but Hurts rolled out and he threw a touchdown to Greg Ward Jr. And there were 4 Cowboys defenders surrounding Greg Ward Jr., and Greg Ward Jr. caught the touchdown. So it's just one of those things where it gives you flashbacks from the year before of incompetence in the secondary. And really, their only good corner who was playing last night is Trayvon Diggs, and he's a second-year corner. Anthony Brown's not it, even though he had an interception. The ball was underthrown by 5 yards at least. And then you have Jordan Lewis, who he's maybe a little bit better than Anthony Brown. I don't know, but he's still not that great of a corner. And then
Lewis should have caught that touchdown to Greg Ward. He just watched the ball go over, and I was like, you could have caught that.
Yeah,
he's always just always shied away from the ball. I don't understand it, because he's not that tall. And if you look at his Michigan highlight, that's like all he did, the one-handed interceptions and all that. I just don't understand, because hell, you or I could have caught that interception, and we don't play football. You just had to jump up for it.
Yeah, just at least put your hand up and just knock it down. That's all I'm asking. And then of course, I have I already kind of touched on it, but half of their turnovers were unforced errors. I'll just really quickly go into them. So we have the Hail Mary, that was an interception. That doesn't necessarily count. Then we have the drop by Fournette that just carried into Trayvon Diggs' hands. We have the underthrow from Hurts, and then we have the receiver falling down the end zone against the Chargers. So those are just unforced errors where they did capitalize on those. Notice I didn't add in the pick 6, because that's Trayvon Diggs capitalizing and jumping the route. It's not necessarily an unforced error, because even if the quarterback were to make a bad decision, the defender still has to either bait the quarterback or jump the route. So that's more of a forced turnover, in my opinion. So you kind of touched on this. You didn't necessarily do what I thought you were going to do, where you're going to say they've been great against the run. So that's probably because I tipped you off last night when we were talking about that in that group chat. But the Cowboys, their opponents have only run the ball 29 times in 3 games, and the Eagles ran the ball 3 times. So the Eagles didn't even try to run the ball. The Chargers kind of ran the ball, and Eckler had 64 yards on 9-ish attempts. And then the Bucks just didn't run the ball at all. And what that tells me is that the Eagles, they're just dumb. they're not really smart. So I'm not going to throw them into my calculation. But the Chargers, they're like, we're going to pass on you because we can. And the Bucks we're like, we're going to pass on you because we can. So, but the Bucks, they're a pass first team. Chargers, I believe, are a pass first team. And then the Eagles, I don't know what they are. They're just dumb. That's so. So as of that, the Chargers and the Bucks took advantage of what they were good at, what their strength. And I feel like Tom Brady would like to run the ball more, but why would he run the ball when he has three great receivers on his team? And the Bucks aren't really built to run the ball. They're built to pass, even though they do have a solid offensive line. But I think they're trying to transition to being more of a pass team.
Can I say one thing that then we can get into the comments that were dropped?
Yeah, I'm seeing the comments. I just want to say one more thing about the defense, and then we can get into that. So just some running backs coming up, and this would be the thing that would change my mind on the Cowboys defense. So the running backs that they're facing coming up, they have Dalvin Cook, we have Gibson and Washington, Josh Jacobs with the Raiders, Melvin Gordon, who is a little bit older, but he can still beat you with the Broncos. And then the Broncos had that rookie also. Alvin Kamara with the Saints. Chase Edmonds, James Conner, and Kyler with Arizona. And then Damian Harris with the Patriots. Patriots are really going to be that first test other than the Giants. But the Patriots they want to run the football. So that's going to be kind of where our defensive line is going to be tested. So the last thing I'm going to say is the Chargers game where the Cowboys defense looked its best, I think. That game, the Chargers had 11 out of 12 of their penalties come on offense, and 2 of those penalties negated touchdowns. So I don't think the Chargers are the same team that they were when they played the Chiefs and won, because I think if we had played that Chargers team, which wasn't as careless with the penalties, we would have lost. So I think what our defense has done is they've been great at taking advantage of mistakes and not necessarily of being good. They've just taken advantage of other teams' mistakes. So I think that the defense I'm going to say they've improved a little bit, but I'm still going to rank them in the bottom 10 in the league. But I think they could improve because they are playing like they want to improve, and that play style is only going to get you a little bit better. But one of the causes for pauses that I have is the turnovers. They're coming. We've taken the ball away so much now. I don't know if we're going to be taking the ball away at that rate, so that could harm the defense moving forward. So that's just my one cause for pause. But that's all I got to say about the defense, and we have a lot of questions right now.
Can I say one thing before we do the questions?
Yeah.
So an injury update. So Mike McCarthy said Neville Gallimore looks good, but he will be out a couple weeks, and Kelvin Joseph, who hurt his groin, will not be coming back anytime soon, which is just lovely, lovely. Mm-hmm. So if you want to throw your questions up on the board and we can go from there, by all means, go for it, sir.
Okay, how do I throw questions up on the board?
So I'll do the first one.
Okay, so from Alex, my roommate, Alex Etzel. What makes Tom Brady elite? Curious on your thoughts. So what makes Tom Brady elite is his preparation and leadership, I feel like. I think Tom Brady is one of the greatest leaders in sports ever. The fact that he went to another team and they immediately won the Super Bowl just shows his leadership and just his preparation. He's going to outwork you. He's going to out film study you. He's going to out train you. He's not the most athletic guy, but he takes a lot of pride in his preparation. And while all the other quarterbacks are out there, vacationing, playing golf, going to Cabo, Tom Brady's in his backyard in his living room studying film. So that's what makes him elite. He's not the greatest, most talented thrower of the football ever, but he's so knowledgeable of the game of football that's going to be really hard for you to confuse Tom Brady. So that's why I think Tom Brady is an elite quarterback.
last episode of Hard Knocks, when Parsons went to go meet with DeMarcus Ware, they were talking about, or DeMarcus Ware was talking about when he faced Tom Brady in his young career, and he was saying how Tom plays mind games with him because as a young, as he might have been a rookie, second year, third guy going up against Tom Brady, you're kind of not set up to succeed. And he was saying how Brady would just call his number, but it had nothing to do with anything other than to just mess with him mentally. And I feel like that's one of Brady's best things. And also, he hasn't really had a big drop off. And the Buccaneers, they just needed a quarterback, any quarterback better than Jameis to be good. But his leadership definitely helped. But I don't think that I think Brady was just benefited off having one of the best rosters in all of football. But I think that him taking the Patriots with a really bad wide receiver core is better than anything he'll ever do on the Buccaneers.
Yeah. Yeah, great point. So do you just click on the comments and they pop up on the screen? Is
Yep.
that how it works? Okay.
It's Joe.
Oh, okay. Super Bowl contenders. My Super Bowl contenders in order. I still have the Bucks because they have Tom Brady. I think their defense they're suffering with a lot of injuries on their in their secondary, but I think they will get those players back and they will get better in the secondary. So I'm going to still ride with the Bucks. Then I have the Rams. I think the Rams they're just showing right now that they were just a quarterback away. We're now seeing how great Cooper Kupp is as a receiver. They added Deshaun Jackson, who's a very dangerous deep threat. They still have solid tight ends, and then their defense is still great. Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey on that defense. So they're poised to make a deep playoff run. And with Matthew Stafford, we're finally kind of seeing, or the world is seeing, kind of just how good Matthew Stafford actually is. So I think that I'm going to put them at 2. Number 3, I have the Chiefs. Their defense, they've looked bad. Their offense, they're good on offense, but I think the Rams having a better defense than they do and having an offense that can be in a shootout with them if they need to. I'm going to take the Rams over the Chiefs. After the Chiefs, I have the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are pretty balanced. Kyler Murray's looked good. They have D-Hop, AJ Green, Christian Kirk, Chase Edmonds, James Conner. Their offense is loaded, and then I think their defense is much improved. So I'm gonna take the Cardinals at 4, and then at 5 I'm gonna take the Packers. Packers defense isn't that great, but their offense is still great, and they still have Aaron Rodgers. So those are my 5. I didn't give the AFC much love because I don't believe in the AFC. I think the NFC is way better than the AFC. So they're my top 5 Super Bowl contenders in order.
I will do 3 from the AFC and 3 from the NFC. For the NFC, obviously the top Buccaneers. For 2, I have the Rams, and then at 3, I have the Packers. So those are pretty easy 3. And for the AFC, first are the Chiefs. For the second, I have the Bills. And at 3, it's either the Browns or Chargers, but I'll say Browns because their defense is a lot better than the Chargers, in my opinion.
Great point. Yeah, then we have... Why is it not working? I just had it. Can you do the next comment? It's not popping up. There it goes. How did you do that? Did you just click on it?
Yeah, you just click on it and then it says show.
Oh, okay. I got it now. Yeah. Can we get some love for the tight ends? Yes. Dalton Schultz is a great tight end. I've said it. I think I've said it on this show, but I think Dalton Schultz is a much better option at tight end all the time than Blake Jarwin. Just because he's a lot more skilled and balanced. Well, not necessarily skilled as a route runner, but I think he's more reliable to have on the field because of his blocking ability. So I think Dalton Schultz should be on the field more, but I think Blake Jarwin is still a very good asset to have as a receiving tight end also. So, and also for Philly, Dallas Goedert looks great and Zach Ertz still looks great. So tight ends Tight ends are important. So yeah, there's the love for the tight ends.
I think that when Schultz was drafted in the 4th round or 5th round from Stanford, he was just a run blocker. So I had no hope of him ever catching a ball. And I think he caught less than 5 passes his rookie year. But obviously, when Jarwin went down with torn ACL, he kind of had to. And I think that that's where he had probably one of the best jumps on the Cowboys. And I think that he's definitely had more progression than Jarwin. I still think Jarwin can catch better, but he can't block to save his life, as that was shown week 1. I think Schultz is much better overall, but I would hopefully in the future, if the Cowboys would like to draft a tight end, I think Schultz would be a great number 2. He's a solid number 1, but I would like someone that can catch the ball better than him, and that's not named Blake Jarwin. I think
Yeah.
I'm going to take this one first, and then you
Okay.
can go. I'm going to take this one first.
Okay.
Did y'all feel like part of the success this week was from McCarthy/Jerry letting Dak control the game a bit more? I love when Dak just gets the keys and can do whatever he wants. I came to a realization earlier today. I think Dak, the past 2 seasons, 2019, 2020, he had to prove to Jerry and everyone else that he was worth getting a contract. So I feel like he had to do way more than was asked of him to make that money. He would have gotten money anywhere else, but he wanted a big contract and to have a star on his helmet. Because for his first 2 years, he was able to just hand the ball off to Zeke, and Zeke could do whatever he wanted. But then when Zeke got suspended and stuff like that, Dak had to do stuff that I feel like Dak in his second year when he had to throw the ball is just like Jalen Hurts right now, what he has to do, because Jalen Hurts would be a lot better if he had a running game. That's another conversation for a different day. So I think Dak right now in his career is a lot more mature in the fact that he can handle things, but I still think that he's at his best when he's handing the ball off. But if he needs to get 90 yards to win the game, he's definitely more than capable of that. But I do like how he is able to call more audibles now and deceive the defense, because even last night there were a few times where he called an audible, called the bootleg to Schultz, and it was like a 25-yard gain, which I loved.
Yeah. So I'm glad that he added Jerry in here, because it's very important to acknowledge that Jerry still pretty much runs every portion of this football team. But I think Dak having more control of the game is great, because it shows his evolution as a player in the last 5 years. I think he's a much better quarterback than he was his rookie year. And I think he's a lot more, and I think it's good that, they're trusting him to, make changes and conduct the offense. I think that sometimes when giving a quarterback too much control could be harmful, because then they make a lot of those changes from running plays to passing plays. And just an example to show that I'm not biased, when Cowboys lost to the Packers when Matt Flynn was playing quarterback, one of the most disastrous losses in the history of their football team, Romo changed a run play to a pass play, and that pass play was ultimately intercepted. And that's kind of why they lost the football game, because they weren't running the football. So, but I do think that giving Dak more control is a positive, because I would much rather Dak be in control of what's being called than a Mike McCarthy, because I just have no faith in Mike McCarthy. So I'm glad that Mike McCarthy is giving Dak some more keys to put on his keychain. But I think it's also nice to see that Dak was smart enough to realize that they can't win football games throwing a ton. And in the last 2 games, they've really emphasized trying to be balanced, and that's why they're winning. And like you said, they're 29 or 31-0 when, running the ball more than they're passing. So I think as long as they kind of keep that mindset, they should be a pretty good football team.
I think they can definitely go, if for whatever reason the run game doesn't work out, that Dak definitely can outduel someone with the wide receivers that they have. I don't think that he's not able to. I think last year a lot of the part was that in a shootout, it's basically whoever's defense can get a stop first. And last year the Cowboys defense couldn't stop a nosebleed. and I think that their defense is much improved, which isn't saying much. So if for whatever reason when they play the Chiefs, because the Chiefs defense is way worse than Dallas's, so if the Chiefs Cowboys game is a shootout, I would have much more faith in Dallas getting a stop rather than the Chiefs. But I'm gonna go to the next one.
Without McCaffrey, how will the Panthers perform? See, this is an interesting question. So I think the Panthers have a very solid offense, even without McCaffrey. I think that, having their they have Robbie Anderson, and then I'm blanking on his name, but
Moore.
Yeah, DJ Moore, not AJ Moore, DJ Moore, and they're both very good receivers. They're both really fast, and it's going to be hard for the Cowboys to stick with those guys. I do think not having McCaffrey will be a huge benefit to the Cowboys because they won't have to account for him. But I still think that the Panthers can do some damage on offense, especially since they have Mr. Mono Man Sam, who has had experience beating the Cowboys with a much inferior football team. So I think that game will be interesting. I'm not sure who I'm going to pick now that McCaffrey is not playing anymore. But I do think that the Panthers will still be able to do a lot more damage than the Eagles were able to do this last game.
Yeah, I'm very confident that if they have Trayvon Diggs follow DJ Moore, then that will be very, very great for the Cowboys. I don't think that anyone not named Trayvon Diggs, and I don't think a cornerback not named Trayvon Diggs can keep up with Robbie Anderson, which will be an issue. Mono Man Sam I've gone back and forth with Nick, Delahanty, and Alex, a good friend of mine, about how I think that he's doing. I thought that Sam was doing a lot better, but they definitely do not agree. They just think that him having a better offensive line and a better supporting cast has helped him and has allowed him to not look so horrid. But I think they'll still be good. Their defense is amazing, and I don't think that our offensive line can hold up with guys like Brian Burns and a few other defensive linemen. To my knowledge, they don't have. I can't think of a safety or cornerback that they have off the top of their head. Well, they just traded for the guy from Jacksonville, but I don't know if he'll be playing in that game. And their J.C. Horn, broke his foot, so hopefully he'll be able to come back in a few weeks. But I'll have to do some research for next week's preview or this upcoming week's preview to decide if Dallas will be able to outduel that defense.
Yeah.
And
next one, score projections. That's
next week.
That's a lot of stuff. I'm just going to give one score projection, and it's not going to be related to the Cowboys. Patriots Buccaneers Sunday Night Football. I'm going to take the Buccaneers 31 to the Patriots 23.
They're going to put up 23 points. Mac Jones threw 3 interceptions last week. He's not putting up 23 points. I will be very surprised. I will come back here next week and look like an idiot if he does, but I do not see him going up against who is the defensive coordinator of the Buccaneers and being able to beat him. I forget his name. He used to be the coach for the Jets. Yeah, I don't see him outdueling him.
Oh, I don't think he's going to have to outduel him. I just think that the Bucs secondary is abysmal and trash, and they don't have anyone healthy. And also, I think that the Patriots receivers are not very good either, but I think 23 points is not as hard to get as you believe. That's just a touchdown. One touchdown in 3 out of the 4 quarters. And who knows, maybe they get a field goal or something like that. But I still think that the Bucs are going to win. Belichick, he's been scheming all year for this game. So I think it's going to be hard for Brady to get the 31 points, but it's not going to be a very difficult contest the entire way. I think the Patriots get a garbage time touchdown, and that's why it's only an 8-point victory instead of a 15-point victory. But
Gianna asked, "Do you have anything you were going to say? Were you done?"
Oh no, that's it. That's my score prediction.
Okay, cool. Gianna said, "Do you think the Cowboys would beat the Eagles again later in the season? And did the Cowboys outplay them, get lucky, or both?" In a perfect world, the Cowboys played the Eagles the last week of the season, and I would very much like to see Cooper Rush start that game, or even Ben DiNucci, so they can lose all they want as long as they have the NFC East clutched up, so they can do whatever they want that game. The Cowboys flat out outplayed them. I didn't think they were. I thought that Jalen Hurts was going to look a lot better, but he's throwing a pick in 100% of his games against Dallas, which is just 3 or 2, and he's looked horrid. So I did not think that. I thought that he was going to take the next step and look a lot better. The only knock on the Dallas offense, there's a few knock, but one of the biggest ones, Dak, for whatever reason, likes to throw a duck every game. It just somewhere in there. No one really talks about it, but he throws a duck, and he threw a pretty bad one last night. And I was like, come on, buddy, you can do so much better than that. He threw a route. He threw a ball to the top right or the right side of the field, a deep ball, and it was not by anyone. And I was like, you've been in the league for 4+ years now. How are you doing that? But
yeah, there is no luck involved. The Cowboys just, they casually walked in there, took the Eagles' lunch money, and then walked out of the stadium and had a nice 3-meal course with that lunch money. In a vacuum, the Cowboys would definitely blow them out again. But like Owen said, if the Cowboys have a playoff position locked, then they're probably going to sit a lot of people. And I mean, I think the Cowboys with their backup quarterback could beat the Eagles because that's how bad the Eagles looked, in my opinion. So, yeah, I think it was definitely, there's no luck involved. The Eagles were lucky to score 21 points. That was the only luck involved.
By that point, Gardner Minshew or Joe Flacco may go play, and if Joe Flacco,
I was saying yesterday, I'm like, Owen, you better hope they put in Joe Flacco. That's the only chance you have of winning this, being right on your prediction. But I think they're very committed to Jalen Hurts at least for the full year. So I doubt that we'll see Joe Flacco unless Hurts gets injured.
Maybe they will double dip in OU quarterbacks and take Spencer Rattler, who has looked horrendous this year.
Yeah, he's not NFL ready. He is the closest thing to a preseason bust, where then he's like closer to Jamarcus Russell than he is to Joe, and then he is to That's kind of harsh. I'm gonna say he's a very similar comparison to Josh Rosen, but he looks way worse than Josh Rosen.
Yeah, I don't even know. One thing that I wanted to say, Peyton Manning, when the Cowboys went for it on 4th down, on 4th and goal, he did not like the call, but he got it, and he said that's just Dak doing Dak things when he rolled out to the right and threw it to Cedric Wilson. I was like, thank you, Peyton. Thank you.
And thank you for reminding me. Eli Manning, he had a lot of highlights this broadcast. He flipped off everyone on the broadcast, which I thought was great. ESPN made him apologize for it, which I thought was not great. And then he also did some dance moves. He did Dak's little warm-up drill, kind of broke down what he was doing. I thought he did it better because I just really like Eli. And just a transition, Tom Brady congratulated Eli Manning, and so did Bill Belichick, for getting into having his number retired for the Giants. So let me just to transition from that. Thank you, Eli Manning, from stopping Tom Brady from getting that perfect season in the Super Bowl. Tom Brady is not going to get that perfect season this year because they lost. So, but either way, thank you, Eli Manning, for saving us from a perfect season world where Tom Brady has that Super Bowl and a perfect season. Follow Eli Manning on Twitter. He's very funny, and watch their broadcast with him and Peyton because it is much better than the regular broadcast, and they're probably destroying them in ratings.
Yeah,
so
Booger yesterday, he was talking about that name. Just saying it bothers me. He was talking. He posted on Twitter about how no one's looking at Dak, but he was saying that Dak looks like an elite quarterback and one of the best, which is interesting. An interesting comment. I was like, okay, thank you, Booger, for your amazing tweet.
Yeah, I think Dak is a lot better when he isn't throwing as much and he's just controlling what is going on. And the last 2 games he's been playing that way, and so the Cowboys have won more. So I think a lot of quarterbacks, if you give them the Cowboys weapons, they can throw for a lot of yards. I'm not saying that Dak is a normal quarterback because he's definitely an above average or a good quarterback, but he is a much better quarterback when he's able to manage the game and then kind of just play his game at the end. So I'm glad that they've kind of transitioned more into that the last few games, and I hope it carries over. And it should carry over if the defense keeps playing like they are.
Yeah,
But
100%.
but that's all I have for today. If I know you have class in an hour.
All right.
Yeah.
I just Micah Parsons and Osa Odigizua are having a heck of a start to the year. They're 1-2 when it comes to pressures, hurries, and sacks. And I think that's just pretty great. And also Parsons, I don't even know what a hustle play is or a hustle stop, but he has 3 of them. And only 2 players have more, Buda Baker and Jesse Bates, who have 4. So kudos to you, Parsons. Kudos to you.
Good job. Good job, rookies.
And I wanted to see Kelvin Joseph play, but his groin decided to not want to work.
So he's not playing next week either?
Nope. He'll be back by in Madden. I wanted to play, and they said he tore his groin. So at this point, I have no idea what's going on with Kelvin Joseph's groin.
Yeah. For all we know, he could just be recording off in Cabo and not even in Dallas. So that's also an alternative. But yeah, so you can find us on America's Team, capital P, capital C, on Twitter. I did some tweeting during last week's game. Didn't do very much because the game wasn't very in need of tweets. But that's what I'll be doing for every Cowboys game. I'll be just, tweeting, giving my 2 cents under the All About America's Team Twitter page. We also have a page on Instagram that is All About America's Team. Follow that for some just casual updates. And on YouTube, where you're watching this is our live recording where you see our wonderful, beautiful faces. My prop sports coat. Did not need the sunglasses today, but usually wear those. And then just any other props that I have on me. I have this prop. This is my favorite prop of all time. We have, Tony and his Corona and his football, taking fantasy football calls. I might have to call him soon. My teams are not looking very good, other than my team and yours truly, Owen's Fantasy Football League, where I am undefeated. But, yeah, that's all we have for today. We will be back Friday to talk about the Dallas Cowboys and Carolina Panthers matchup, where they'll be taking on Mono Man Sam and no Christian McCaffrey. So we'll get into that. But that's all I have. That's all we have. Thank you for spending some time today with us. And the podcast version of the show will probably be out 1 to 3 days on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Anchor, etc. Have a great rest of your day. Go Cowboys.
Go Cowboys.